Hi, I'm Ray from the Radio Workshop. A lot of you will recognise this. It's a 19 set. I'm always going on about 19 sets. I made a video, just over 2 years ago, I think, must be now, all about the 19 set. So this video isn't about this. It's about what people did with these, rather than so much about the set itself. They cover, what do they cover? 2 to 8 megs in 2 bands. So they take in just about, you could go below 2 megs. So you've got 160 meters top band, that's the amateur band. You've got 80 meters, 3.5 megs, 80 meters amateur band, and the 40 meter amateur band, 7 megs. So you've got 3 amateur bands in there. So these were a good start for those interested in amateur radio. Back in the 60s, they were readily available. They weren't expensive, and they worked. I must have bought half a dozen or more over the years back then, and each one I took home, got it into the radio shack as it was called then. Each one worked. They needed modifying and bits and pieces doing to them, so they were a good starter radio, and people used them for many years. Apart from radio amateurs, they were used by the CCF, that's the Combined Cadet Force. What that was, at various schools around the country, this is the UK, various schools had a kind of Combined Cadet Force department, a radio room or shack or whatever, radio section, a signals platoon run by a kind of resident or local sergeant, signals sergeant or whatever he was. I don't know too much about that side of it. So a lot of these were the schools all around the country, and the schoolboys interested in perhaps joining the army or radio communication, this was a way in, the signals platoon. Okay, they were kind of, someone once said they were like half-trained soldiers once they signed up, got their hands on, in the radio room, onto one of these, and they were chatting. So what did they use them for? Well, basically to learn radio communication, radio procedure, radio operation, all that sort of thing, so they could possibly, hopefully, go on to become perhaps a radio operator or whatever in the army. They were schoolboys. When I say schoolboys, I don't suppose they're like 8 years old, but 16, 15, 16 year olds at school, and in their lunchtime or after school, because remember a lot of these are boarding schools, we're not talking about your kind of local secondary modern school down the road that I went to. We didn't have stuff like this. All we did after school was go to detention. Well, I did. So yes, they had set frequencies outside the amateur bands. The most famous is Delta Oscar, which is 5330 kilohertz. In those days we called it 5.33 megs. There was Tango Golf, just below 5 megs. On 5 megs you get the time signal. You'd hear it, it would sort of go, how does the noise go? Kind of every second. Then at the top of the hour, top of the minute, beep, like that. Beep. So you knew you were spot on 5 megs. Tune just below that, slightly LF, and that was Tango Golf. I don't know what the frequency was, 4.9 something. I don't know what the frequency was. And that was Tango Golf. I think they had another sort of spot frequency. Was it top of two, just under 3 megs, 2 point something, or slightly over 3 megs? I think that was CW only, Morse code only. So that was that, the CCF frequencies. And lunchtimes you could hear the CCF lads, the schoolboys, chatting to each other on Delta Oscar or Tango Golf. And they were, as I say, learning radio procedure. They would call, for example, on 5 megs on Delta Oscar, they'd call out for other stations. Just found a microphone to go with it. There we are, the old carbon microphone. Happy days. So what happened was, you get a CCF station, and let's put something under here to stop that rattling about. That's better. When I lean on it, it bangs around. One of the CCF stations, one of the schools, you get a lad on there, he'd go on to the frequency, and the procedure was, he'd say Delta Oscar, Delta Oscar, Delta Oscar. Delta Oscar, Delta Oscar, Delta Oscar. Hello all stations, Delta Oscar. This is 18 Alpha, radio check, over. Okay. He would then listen and a station would reply. A station might say, hello 18 Alpha, this is 4 Bravo, okay, over. So okay meant that you're okay, otherwise it's difficult, unworkable. They were sort of signal reports. Okay was obviously okay. Right. So then the calling station in the first place would say, 4 Bravo, this is 18 Alpha, you are also okay and on net. Right, on net, you've got a netting switch here, very useful. Basically it turned on the transmitter oscillator so you could hear it on the receiver. What you would do, you would tune this, you'd listen to the chap's signal, his carrier coming in, you'd zero beat your transmitter, okay, kind of zero beat on that. So you knew then that you were spot on. Hang on, is there such thing as spot on with a 19 set? You were more or less on his frequency, put it that way. Okay, so yeah, that was the procedure. And he would then say, hello, any other station, now this is 18 Alpha, hello, any other station, Delta Oscar, exempt Charlie Charlie, which meant, apart from the ones I've already got on the net, this is 18 Alpha, radio check, over. Then other stations would call in or whatever. If they didn't, he'd then go back to the first station. 4 Bravo, this is 18 Alpha, send, over. Send meaning send. Some of the early transmitters had a send switch, which was send as in transmit. We used to use these with them, with the PTT there. So yeah, that's what it was all about. And if you were a pirate, which I wasn't, of course, I hasten to add, you would tune your 19 set up. This is the aerial section. You tune this up, maximum reading here, or you switch it to aerial, maximum reading there, and you could call in. I would say, if it was me, for example, hello 18 Alpha, this is whatever, 26 Bravo, radio check, over. And he'd say, yeah, 26 Bravo, this is 18 Alpha, and I joined the net. If he was a little bit suspicious of me, now this is where the fun starts. I might call in as, say, 4 Bravo, and he would say to me, 4 Bravo, this is 18 Alpha, authenticate 2-4. I say again, authenticate 2-4, over. Right, I would then say, 18 Alpha, this is 4 Bravo, roger. I'd have to authenticate. Now the authentication code was like every month they got a sheet of paper, like a matrix, and you'd look down, which way are we? You'd look down the side here. So what was it? He'd say 2-4. There's 2. You go along to 4. In the square would be a number, for example 5-6. So he would say authenticate 2-4. If I said, Roger, I authenticate 2-4 as 5-6, he would say correct. Now the little trick there is, when you listen a lot. All these you write down. If you hear a station being asked to authenticate, like 18, yes, the answer's 6-4, correct, you write that down, that equals 6-4. So if ever you were asked that, you'd say, have I got it, have I got it? You get your piece of paper, have I got that? No, I haven't. So what you could do, if he said authenticate 2-4, you haven't got the code, you could say, Roger, I authenticate 3-4 as 7-3. Now he didn't ask you 3-4, he asked you 2-4, but you've got 3-4. And he would say, I incorrect, I asked you whatever. You'd say, sorry, you are difficult, meaning there's interference. You could actually say to him, there is interference. I authenticate 3-4 as 7-3. Sometimes they'd accept that. Other times they wouldn't. Other times they'd say, you are unauthorized to operate on this frequency, close down now, out to you. And that was you thrown off the net. Wasn't a problem. Wait 5 minutes and go back on with another call sign and change your voice slightly. I wasn't often asked to authenticate because I suppose when I was mid-teens, 15, 16, I sounded, had I gone on, I didn't go on, but had I been on here transmitting, which I wasn't, I would have got away with it because I was kind of more or less the same age as them. So, you know, I wouldn't have sounded like sort of anything other than a schoolboy, I suppose. But of course I didn't transmit, I only listened. Right, so yes, this authentication code thing was a problem. But it was a problem that was soon solved. There were quite a few of us pirates around. And people got to know each other, and someone obviously got to know someone at one of these schools, the CCF set up there. And it wasn't long before we were all receiving authentication codes every month in the post. Now, I don't know how this came about, but you know, you get your matrix, and of course you're asked, you know, authenticate 7.2. Roger, I authenticate 7.2 as 1.2 or whatever. Now that's correct. And I don't know how that came about. Well, I kind of do, but I forget. So moving on swiftly, there was this station. Yeah, nice chap. So that was that. You could authenticate correctly. Now the thing was, okay, so you get onto the net. What did we chat about? Well, what they would say is equipment in use is a 19 set or a 62 set or whatever. The aerial is a dipole, cut for this frequency, cut for Delta Oscar. And, you know, you'd do the same thing. Equipment in use is a 19 set and the aerial. You wouldn't give your location because obviously you're on there illegally, and also they didn't give their location because this is meant to be, you know, the army don't give away their position. All right, this is part of the training. You know, no good saying, oh, I'm in Birmingham, you know, Bloggs Road, Birmingham, because, well, that's no good. Then the enemy know where you are. So yeah, that was that. You chat about the equipment and that sort of thing. You could also say the weather here is overcast with showers, or it's sunny and the temperature is whatever. You know, you couldn't chat about what you saw on telly last night. It wasn't like that. It was for training. That was the whole idea. You're training these lads, as I said before, in, you know, communications, radio procedure. You know, it wasn't to have a chat about what was on the telly or what you're doing this weekend. Okay, so you didn't know where these stations were. One station might say to you, yes, you're okay, your signal is okay. You didn't know how far you were getting. You know, was he local? Was he 20 miles away at a school? Was he the other end of the country? Well, funnily enough, I got told, well, I didn't get hold of, someone got hold of it, a friend of mine. We got hold of this net directory. And what a net directory is, it's numerical and alphabetical order. All the stations, so you could go 18 Alpha, 18 Alpha, let's have a look. Oh yeah, 18 Alpha, there's the school, and that's the address, that's where it is. So that was handy. Bear in mind, none of this was kind of top secret. None of it was classified information, Official Secrets Act, any of that. You know, these people were on the radio. Information, you know, it wasn't sort of classified stuff. They didn't, if they said we're going to go to Tango Golf, they didn't say go to 4.9 whatever megs it was, because all the pirates would follow, which they did, because we all knew where Tango Golf was. If they're on Tango Golf and they said move to Delta Oscar, well, we all knew that was 5330 kilohertz. So, yeah, they didn't give information away, obviously, freely, but everyone knew everything anyway. So that was it. But talking of training, that's where I learned everything. I learned all the time. I was learning, not just getting the 19 set going, you know, taking it out of its cabinet, having a look inside, repairing, modifying, fitting a EF86 valve so it would take a crystal microphone, use that as the audio preamp. Crystal mic instead of the carbon, far better audio quality, far better modulation, all sorts of things you could do, loads of mods, build a mains power supply inside instead of the big old rotary power supply and the vibrator pack on the side. So yeah, it was, as I said, all the pirates well, the majority of the pirates didn't muck about. This was a serious hobby to them, as it was to me. You don't go on there playing music and swearing, because that would just get you into serious trouble. All the time you were doing the correct procedure, chatting properly and sensibly, then I don't think the GPO, as it was then, they were the people that used to bust pirates. I think they sort of turned a blind eye to an extent. Okay, that's the CCF. That was great. Learned a lot chatting to them and just getting the equipment going. Learned a lot about aerials. What a lot of pirates did, instead of going on there all the time, because you have to authenticate and they have to do it all properly, they went to Echo Charlie, which was 6.6 megs. Well, 6.6 something. I mean, on here you go to 6, there we are, 6.5, 6.6 and a bit. That was probably, I mean, what is it these days, 6670 kilohertz, isn't it? They're still there, they're using sideband, lower sideband, but Echo Charlie is still going. On here, it wasn't 6670, it was 6.6 and a bit, because you couldn't sort of, that's all the dial said. And whatever the dial said was probably way out anyway. So it was a little bit of guesswork. But the pirates set up their own kind of Delta Oscar, and they called it Echo Charlie on 6.6 megs. So you could have a chat on there. Same sort of thing, call signs, 18 Alpha, 3 Bravo, 5 Bravo, whatever. They'd call Echo Charlie, Echo Charlie, Echo Charlie, hello any station, Echo Charlie. It was just that kind of mirroring the CCF really. Although on 6.6 you did get idiots. There's always idiots somewhere, which spoilt it a bit. But yeah, that was quite good. There was another pirate frequency around. Was it 3.3 megs? I think. I don't think that had a kind of designated, like Echo Charlie or Tango Golf. They're just 3.3 megs. That was quite interesting as well. Also, with the 19 set, as it covered 3 amateur bands, you could go on the amateur bands, make up a call sign, G3, whatever. You'd hear a chap, CQ40, this is G3XYZ or whatever he was. You go back to him, yeah, this is G3 whatever, and you have a chat to him. Obviously you have to be sensible because you're supposed to be now a licensed radio amateur. And again, chatting on the amateur bands, alright, it was illegal, you were a pirate, but I think the GPO kind of turned a blind eye again to an extent, because you're doing it properly. You're not playing music and swearing and shouting, you're not mucking around, you're having proper contacts with people on the amateur bands. Sometimes they'd say you're not in the call book. The RSGB did a call book, and you could look in there and think, oh, that one isn't listed, use that call sign to pirate with. You could opt out, and but some people were a bit suspicious if you said, well, I've opted out of the call book. But I learned a lot there. This is what it was all about for me. It was learning about transmitters, receivers, aerials, propagation, radio procedure, learning all the time. Every time I turned my 19 set on, I was learning. So yeah, it really was okay. It's illegal, but as I say, we weren't playing music all over the place. It was good stuff. So you've got. I remember one amateur. He said to me, "You're a very strong signal. Where are you?" Brighton. He was a mile away from where I lived. I looked at him in the call, but oh dear, he's just round the corner. Happy to, mind you, he chatted to me. He knew he chatted to me. I've had a chat with him quite often, once or twice a week. So the 19 set, the CCF, pirate frequencies, 3 amateur bands, but there was something else you could use it for. The trawler band was between sort of 2 and 3 megs, 2 megs, 2182 calling and distress. That still is, I believe, up to about 3 megs. So that's the trawler band, local fishermen, fishing boats, shipping. And the 19 set being versatile. Not all of them, but a lot of the fishermen couldn't use, they couldn't afford proper marine gear. It was expensive. Stick a 19 set in the boat, power supply, battery operated, aerial sticking up, they'd have a chat. Now, I knew a fisherman actually who had a 62 set in his boat. Quite a few had 19 sets, and I used to listen to them. And you could grab your microphone. How are you doing? How's the fishing going today? I mean, I didn't do that because I wasn't a pirate. But you could have a chat to the local fishermen and also listen to shipping. Listen to shipping. Was it Night and Radio on this southern sort of tip of the Isle of Wight? I used to listen to Night and Radio. Various other Coast Guard stations you could hear around the country. Because especially at night when the propagation was really good, down onto the 2182, 2 megs, 2.7 phone calls, ship to shore phone calls. They'd use 2 frequencies. That was quite good. Just get a cover, listen on your 19 set. And I also had a Lafayette receiver. That was nice, the Lafayette, for tuning around, so you could hear both sides of the phone call, the ship and the shore side. So again, the 19 set was great. You have a chat to the local fisherman or the local oil tanker going past, just out off the channel, because I'm on the south coast, not far from Shoreham Harbour. I've got the Isle of Wight just down the road that way, so the English Channel, busiest shipping lane in the world, isn't it, I believe? So there was always an oil tanker to have a chat to. I started out, what was I, 15, I think, 14, 15. 15 I first went to work. I left school at 14. I started off with an 18 set, kind of man pack thing you have on your back with a big whip aerial, like a 12-foot aerial. The 18 set was a nice bit of kit. Where I worked in the radio and TV workshop as an apprentice, there were a couple of radio amateurs there, 2 or 3 pirates, so I had lots of help, lots of knowledge. I built a power supply for the 18 set. What was it, 2-volt valve heaters, I think, I forget the HT. But I built a power supply and I got the 18 set working, put up an aerial at home, because I did this in the workshop, the modifications and the power supply. Took it home, put up an aerial, and I could hear a chap on 40 metres, CQ40. Well, this is good. Grabbed the microphone. I thought that was that type, with the plug straight in the front. I answered him, came straight back to me. He was in Southampton. He didn't believe my call sign in the end. Again, he looked me up in the book and said, "I think you're a pirate." So I got all the way down to Southampton. I'm in Worthing near Brighton, so I was amazed, and I was on the 18 set all the time. Of course, then I discovered 19 sets. One of the chaps in the workshop said, "Oh, you don't want an 18, you want a 19." That was it. Got my first 19 set. But the 18 set was a good one to start off with, because I had several of those. They've gone now. I've sold them. I don't know what I've done. They're worth a fortune. Should have kept on. I don't know. I had lots of these. I should have kept all the stuff. Mind you, I wouldn't be able to move, would I? Later on, I managed to get a 52 set receiver. Quite a nice receiver. But better than that, I got the matching transmitter. 813 valve in the PA. Big 813. Oh, what a piece of kit that was. Built a mains power supply for that. What was it? 1600 volts on the anode, 2000. I can't remember. Lethal power supply. But wow, did that go. People all around the country were saying, "Are you next door to me?" I don't know what sort of power I was getting out of it in those days. Modified that again, did lots of modifications. But always came back to the 19 set. There we are. This one, I've got the receiver working. I've got to build a power supply. So I've got quite a bit of work to it. Unfortunately, it's scruffy. It's a fairly scruffy front on this one. But it is in one piece and it does actually work. Just going back to the CCF, there was a station, his call sign was 0. He seemed to be the big boss man, I don't know, the commanding officer or whatever he was. I don't know where he was. And I remember it was a busy time, and someone came on sort of masquerading as 0, and he said, all stations Delta Oscar, you are off frequency, net now, this is 0. So everyone's netting with their netting switch on, all net onto him. And what he'd actually done, he'd take them all off the correct frequency. He'd transmitted close enough so they could just about hear him, and he moved them all off the correct frequency. Because whenever a station came on, this is 0, everyone was, it's the boss. So then they're all chatting away, and I don't know how long it was, like half an hour, the real 0 came on, and it went mental. You are all way off frequency. Oh dear, net now, and he put them all back onto the correct frequency. Quite a few stories like that I could tell you. I was saying earlier that there's always an idiot somewhere. I remember there was someone calling Delta Oscar. This is whatever, 17 Bravo, radio check, over. And this chap called in, hello 17 Bravo, this is 2.5, okay, over. I mean, 2.5. What sort of call sign? It's 2.5. Oh dear. So needless to say, he was told that you are not authorised to operate on this frequency, closed down now, out to you. But in the main it was pretty sensible. There was a time when there were 2 stations on, obviously one was a pirate and one was legitimate, using the same call sign. Now the pirate thought he'd have some fun, and I forget the call signs, but let's say it was 26 Alpha was on, and he joined, he said 26 Alpha, this is 26 Alpha. Well, obviously you can't have 2 people of the same call sign. And then this kind of argument broke out. They both authenticated correctly. So the pirate obviously had a copy of the authentication code. They each asked each other to authenticate again, and it was correct. One of them went to do it for a 3rd time, and someone popped up and pointed out that the rules are you only ask a station to authenticate a maximum of twice. You can't do it more than twice, because all the pirates are writing all this down, always authenticating again. Or 26 equals 37. They're all writing it down. So the rules were you could not ask more than twice. And in the end, 0 came on. He was obviously listening. He came on and was trying to sort it out. And then another 0 came on. So you've got 4 stations. Oh dear. I just listened, and it was quite funny. Bit naughty looking back, but there weren't many times when people messed around like that. As I've said earlier, most people like me, it was a serious hobby. I later became a licensed radio amateur, and of course I had a very good grounding with all the experience over the time I'd had with the 19 set, and actually on the air, on the amateur bands. So when I got my full license, my HF license, and I went on 40 metres, well, I've done all this before. It was nothing new, so it was good experience. I don't know whether there are any CCF stations at schools these days. I think the CCF, the Combined Cadet Force, still exists. There's the air training, ATC's air training. There's what else is there? There's various things, military things. I'm not sure. I have to have a tune around, see if I can hear any CCF stations. They'll all be using single sideband now, of course, these days. But there we are. There's just a few recollections from some very happy days with a 19 set, well, with more than one 19 set. So that's it, all good fun. I must get this one going. I won't do any pirating on it. I've got my license. I'll stick to 40 metres and 80 metres. Perhaps venture to... No. Stick to the amateur bands. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye-bye.